You feel it before you can name it. A dull ache behind the ribs, a heaviness in the shoulders, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You call it stress. You call it being tired. You call it anything except what it actually is. Loneliness doesn't just live in your thoughts. It lives in your blood, your immune system, your heart. And most people never make that connection until it's already reshaping them from the inside. For most of human history, being alone wasn't just uncomfortable. It was lethal. A person separated from the group had no one to watch their back at night, no one to share food during a bad season, no one to help fight off a predator or a rival tribe. Isolation didn't just feel bad. It was a countdown. And your body still remembers that, even now, even in a heated apartment with a locked door and a full refrigerator. Psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying exactly what loneliness does inside the human body, and what he found changed the way scientists think about isolation entirely. Cacioppo didn't treat loneliness as a mood. He treated it as a biological alarm. Just like hunger tells you to eat and thirst tells you to drink. Loneliness, he argued, evolved as a signal. A warning. Get back to the group. You're exposed. But here's the strange part. That ancient alarm system doesn't know the difference between being alone in a dangerous forest and being alone in a perfectly safe modern life. To your nervous system, the two situations register almost the same way. And when that alarm stays on for too long, it doesn't just make you feel bad. It starts changing your physiology. Think about what happens to your body during a real threat. Your heart rate rises, your blood pressure climbs, your immune system shifts into a defensive posture, ready for a wound that might need healing. This response, called the fight-or-flight response, is meant to be short. A burst, not a background hum. But loneliness triggers a milder version of that same alarm, and it can leave it running quietly for weeks, months, sometimes years. Neuroscientist and genomics researcher Steve Cole studies something even more specific. He looks at how loneliness changes the way your genes are expressed. Not your genetic code itself, but which genes get turned up and which get turned down. Cole found that chronically lonely people show a distinct pattern he calls the conserved transcriptional response to adversity. In plain terms, lonely bodies quietly ramp up inflammation-related genes and quietly suppress genes involved in fighting off viruses. Why would your body do that? Because inflammation helps heal wounds, and wounds were historically the biggest threat to someone cut off from the group. Ancient humans without allies were far more likely to be physically injured in a fight, a fall, an animal attack, with no one to help. So the body prepared for injury instead of infection. It made a trade. More defense against wounds, less defense against illness. That trade made sense on a savanna 40,000 years ago. It makes far less sense on a couch, scrolling through a phone, with no wound coming. This is why chronic loneliness has been linked to something that sounds almost impossible: a higher risk of early death. Psychologist Julianne Holt-Lundstad led a massive analysis combining data from over 300,000 people and found that lacking strong social connection carried a health risk comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sit for a second. Isolation, something we rarely talk about as a physical danger, was statistically on par with a habit we've spent decades warning people about on cigarette packaging. You might be wondering how a feeling could possibly carry that much physical weight. But feelings were never meant to stay in your head. Every emotion your ancestors evolved came with a body attached to it. Fear made muscles tense for running. Disgust made your face contort to avoid tainted food. And loneliness made your whole system brace for a version of danger your ancestors couldn't afford to ignore, a life without backup. Here's where it gets even stranger. Loneliness doesn't just affect the lonely person's behavior. It changes how they perceive the world around them. Katiopo's research found that chronically lonely people become subtly more vigilant for social threats. They're quicker to notice a cold expression, quicker to interpret ambiguous comments as rejection. Their brain, still running that ancient alarm, starts scanning every interaction the way your ancestor once scanned a tree line, looking for danger instead of connection. This creates something researchers call a self-reinforcing loop. Loneliness heightens social threat detection. Heightened threat detection makes new connection feel riskier. Feeling more cautious around others makes genuine closeness harder to build. And the harder closeness is to build, the longer the loneliness lasts. It's not weakness. It's not a character flaw. It's an ancient defense system doing exactly what it was built to do, just aimed at a world it was never designed for. So what actually interrupts this loop? Not simply being around more people. Researchers consistently find that loneliness isn't about the number of people nearby. It's about the felt sense of being known, of mattering to someone who would notice if you disappeared. You can be surrounded by a crowded room and still feel completely alone if none of those people truly see you. And you can go days without seeing anyone and feel entirely secure if you know that somewhere, someone is holding you in mind. This distinction matters because it explains something modern life gets wrong constantly. We assume more contact automatically means less loneliness. More messages, more group chats, more notifications from people technically in your life. But your ancient alarm system isn't counting contacts. It's asking a much older, much simpler question. If something happened to me right now, would anyone truly notice? Would anyone come? That question was easy to answer around a fire 40,000 years ago, surrounded by people whose survival depended on yours. It's a much harder question to answer today, in a world where you can have hundreds of digital connections and still not know who would show up. Understanding this doesn't mean loneliness is simple to fix, but it does mean it's not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something purely psychological, disconnected from the rest of you. Your body isn't imagining the exhaustion. It isn't imagining the tension in your chest or the low hum of alertness that never fully switches off. Those are real biological signals, evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, doing exactly what they were built to do, warning you that you're exposed, and asking you, as clearly as your body knows how, to find your way back to people who see you. You feel it before you can name it. A dull ache behind the ribs, a heaviness in the shoulders. But now you know what that ache actually is. It's not weakness. It's not just in your head. It's 40,000 years of biology, still trying to protect you, still waiting for you to come home.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.